Just 1 second. Yeah. So I'll just start. Okay. Hello, a very warm welcome to the VAR show, the show which talks about all the base major football leagues in detail. Today we have a very special guest. We have Mr. Anjo Coppus with us, who is an author and also a football coach. He's been involved in football for quite a while now, and he's quite a intelligent man. And like today, I think it'll be very one of the most intellectual, or in terms of football at least, talk that we have had for quite a while in this show. So, like without wasting much time, I'd like to first thank Anu for coming on the show. Thank you and welcome to the show. And I'd like to begin by asking you, how are you and what are you doing these days?
I'm doing good, and yeah, well, football is at a low pace now, so there's not much football going on, and the competition starting and pausing and starting again. That's very difficult. So football-wise, it's not going good. I work as a PE teacher, a sport teacher at the high school, and the schools are still continuing. So yeah, at school we don't have any delays in that, but the situation is difficult and we have to adapt. But I think that's a strong side of us human beings to adapt to new situations.
Of course, and I wanted to ask you, like, you are also an author. I mean, like, you have written a book, and I think which is going to come out. Let them play didactical periodization. What is it about?
Okay, well, first of all, I've been in football for quite a while now. I'm still playing football. So I started when I was 4 and I'm still playing at uh, at another level. And I played at the highest amateur level, but now I'm playing for a senior team just for fun every Saturday, just not now for the virus, but um, I also worked at a professional football club, VVV Venlo, and at that time, a lot of coaches asked me about drills that were used at a professional club. And yeah, we were developing our team. So I wrote down basically the basic drills of football. What do players have uh, uh, to learn to play the game? That was my title, let them play and let them learn. What I try to accomplish is yeah, if you look at the internet, there's lots of drills, but what are good drills? What are some work perfect for a team, some not. But it all start. What was the big bang in football? Try to write down on paper, and that's basically it's.
Of course, and you said like you wanted to write down what was the big bang of football. What was it like? If you could share.
Okay, well, the big question is, what do you want children to learn? And if you have the game of football, then they have to understand the game. They have to know what they can do. They have to know what they can do, the rules, how to play the rules, how to use the rules. And that is basically where a game starts. If you want to play a game of chess, you have to know what you can do, what you can do. And if I look at coaches, they don't want to start at the beginning, but they want to start, yeah, further away in development of players. Players want to know the rules, and then they can start playing the game. For instance, if you, in yeah, in our PE, in our sports teachers group, we have a lot of discussion of what is more important, learning techniques or learning tactics. And that's always the biggest discussion. But I think tactics are more important for children or players than techniques, because techniques will evolve. They will understand what to do or how to do it. But the what is yeah, is important. Children have to know what to do when they play the game. So that's basically the big bang.
Of course, I knew. Like I wanted to. You said you worked for VVV Venlo, which I think has come into more news because they lost, I think, 13-0 against Ajax. I think last
Yes,
week.
yes, they didn't do a very good job there, but yeah, we see the end result, and we see players do something on the field. We don't know what went on in the week before at practice. We don't know what went on in the locker room, what agreements were made, or what tactics were discussed. So we only see the tip of the iceberg, and that was 30-0. So uh, yeah, a lot went wrong, but we don't know what.
Of course, and I'll get back to yourself. And like you watched one of my videos with Raymond, and you are not very entertained by his ideology. And could you shed some light as to why and what are your major differences to what he thinks? Because he is one of the most renowned people, at least in terms of what he preaches.
Yes, I know that. And well, basically, Raymond Verheijen, his ideology is getting players into shape, and yeah, you have a team, a squad that is not injured. And yeah, he noticed that a lot of coaches were working their players very hard and getting them injured in games. And injuries in your team eventually will have a negative result on the outcome of games. If you can't play your best players, then you will lose games. That was kind of his starting point. So he wanted to play with his best players, but he didn't want players to run laps or do athletic skills and stuff like that. So his starting point was the same as my starting point, or the same as Tito Frade with technical periodization. You want to use football to play better football. That was his starting point. But in his view, like one of the points he has is football practice or conditioning is destroying the body. I I know what he's trying to say, but I don't agree with his view on that. If you work out, you're destroying your body. I see it more as um, yeah, you deplete the energy. You take away the energy from the body, but then the body will come back stronger. I don't see that as destroying the body, even though I know that if you look at the microfibers and muscles, there is some muscle aches, there is some damage, but I don't see that as destroying the body. But that's one of his starting points. And yeah, I think his view is now part of the Dutch FA course, which evolved into the UEFA course and is now transferred all over the world. But I don't see condition or having stamina as the biggest outcome in winning games. So that's basically where he and I are not in one line.
Of course, but like why do you think like what he has taught or what he preaches and is being accepted? Because like you said, like because we see like most of the players, like he also has had, like you like regularly see him like complaining about coaches like Klopp, Guardiola, but they have had success. I mean, you have the initial injury, but they have had success in the past few years at least. Like since he made the complaint, do you think like he's slowly getting outdated because the advancement in data maybe is helping maybe the coaches know when to stop the maybe like putting more pressure physically on the players? Do you think something like that?
I think Raymond's vision is outdated because players are monitored basically every heartbeat nowadays. So we don't need to manage all the pressure we put on them in practice. But I'm not very fond of the way coaches use exercises or drills to develop players. Um, I just mentioned the Big Bang, and the Big Bang also refers to not looking at the game as we do of most coaches do nowadays, like attacking, defending, and the transitions. I don't think there's such thing as an isolated transition. So I took transition out of my view on football, which is something, if I tell coaches that, they almost feign like, no, coaching it, or the game is transition and attacking and defending, and that is football. I don't see it that way, because children don't think in transitions. They think in we have the ball or they have the ball. So I question the fact that if your team is super fit, you will win games. Because if I look at the Dutch league, and there's a lot of teams that use periodization and fitness, there's still teams that lose. And why do teams still lose? Because they have lower quality, they have maybe bad luck in games, they have a different tactic. All those things help the outcome of the game, not just fitness.
So I wanted to ask you, like, you, Raymond, and even like Vito Frade have something in common, that is tactical periodization. You know, all involved in some way or the other. And many of our listeners do not have an idea about what it is, and like it is something that is used a lot. Could you shed some light? What is tactical periodization?
Yes, well, tactical periodization is nothing more than looking at a game, looking at what goes right, looking at what goes wrong, and trying to help your team forward. Raymond's view is helping players forward by making them as fit as possible to keep sprinting if necessary, to have all the energy you need to win a game. Vitor Frade's view is more like, okay, you have the game with all its components and techniques and tactics and stuff like that, but you when you practice with players how to play the game, you have to practice things that they use in the game. Like, for instance, if you practice a 1v1, that is different than playing 11 versus 11. But there are some components in 1v1 that you can use in the game. But if you play 1v1, there's no one you can pass to. So your decision making is different in a 1v1 than if you play 11v11. And tactical periodization is looking at your team, breaking that down into small parts, and use those small parts to build up the game until you're 11 versus 11 again. And that is called the morpho cycle. If you have the game on Sunday, on Monday you rest, on Tuesday you can use the team to do something with it. But you can't put a lot, because they're still tired from the game. You have to do something that will not overload your players on Tuesday. So basically you do, if you don't overload players in a 1v1, you will overload your players. But if you have two players in front of each other, let them pass the ball to each other, then you can do that all day. You don't get tired of that. So that could be something to do on Tuesday. And tactical periodization is building those overload and underload blocks up until the next game on Sunday. And Raymond Verheijen's view does basically the same. Use the game on Sunday and use different overload systems throughout the week or in a period or a season to help players get better. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. I wanted to ask you, like, you spoke of tactical periodization. How important is it? Like, according to you?
Yeah, it is important because in my view on football, players want to play the game because they want to play. Players don't want the game, they don't want to play. So if players want to play the game, that's what you have to practice. And what I experience is that players learn to play the game better in tactical periodization and not as much in Raymonds' view on football. In his view on football, you get more fit, but you don't play the game better. And that takes me more to the side of tactical periodization. To make players play the game better than to Raymond's view on football. But that is discussable. So, yeah, I went to Porto in 2013 to one of my friends, Pepijn Leinders, who is the assistant coach of Liverpool now. And we talked about football there and how they use tactical periodization to build up teams. And I was very charmed by that. And when I came back to Holland and coached my professional team, youth team, I started thinking about the way we practiced in Holland and kind of changed that. And when I wrote down all the drills that I thought were great drills, then people start asking, hey, those are great drills, can I have them? And a drill is as good as the coach that is teaching it. You can develop a great drill or exercise, give it to me, and then I find out that I don't like that drill, or that exercise is not good for my team. So I wanted to tell the story about the exercises I developed, and I used tactical periodization, but because the emphasis is more on what can you do or what decisions do you make, that I'm now calling it didactical periodization and not as much tactical periodization, because I'm not using the morphocycle as Vitor Frade developed it.
Of course, and like you also have, I think, Jose Mourinho style of like I think you have like at least for me, the ones that are very very eminent are Raymonds, which are famous all around the world and many people follow, and Jose Mourinho. What are your views on Jose Mourinho's style of tactical periodization?
Mourinho is a child of tactical periodization. Mourinho didn't invent it. That was Vitor Frade. But what Mourinho does very good is looking at his team and try to find the team's strength. What is your team good at? He has his own style of bringing information across. It's communication. I don't know Mourinho by person. I've never talked to him, so I don't. I don't know what he's doing on the pitch or stuff like that. Mourinho said, I have a book of exercises that will never be, that people will never know about. So it's his secret. But we know he's using tactical periodization. But I think it's a strong side from him to look at a team and see what the team's strengths are, instead of having an idea in your head and trying to make the players execute that idea, because that is very difficult, if you ask me.
Of course, and I wanted so basically, what you mean is what Mourinho does is what Vitor Frade was preaching. Is it like that?
Yes. Vitor Frade was the professor who taught sports at the university in Porto, and his idea was that if you play the game of football and you want to play the game of football better, you have to practice the game of football. That was his starting point.
Of course, and I wanted to. Please go ahead.
Like if you look at that's more my point of view. If you look at the rondo, do you play rondos in India?
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, but not that much. I mean, nowadays I think it's more popular than it was before.
Okay, and do they put four cones with the rondo, or
It,
how do they exercise the
no,
rondo?
it depends on maybe like from coach to coach what they want to do. Like you have a lot of Spanish influence here. Like you have a lot of people coming to this part of the world, and maybe I think with them they bring what they have learned and what they have experienced. So you and most of the trainings are not open to people. Like it's behind closed doors, so you don't really know what they're doing.
Okay, good. Well, what I was trying to say is that a lot of exercises, just like finishing on goal. You put a ball to the side, someone crosses it, and then two players or more have to head it in the goal or get it into the goal. That is a fun exercise, but it's not an exercise that you can use in the game, because in the game there's opponents that take the ball away. Um, the amount of crosses are less. There's a lot of things you practice that you don't need in the game. And yeah, if you use tactical periodization, you take things that happen in the game, try to compromise them or make them smaller, and then use that in your practice. So a lot of exercises that are being used are not making players play the game of football better. They're fun games.
Of course. So I wanted to ask you, like, you are writing a book, and you said like how it is not tactical, it's didactical periodization. And according to what you observe and study in Netherlands and in all of Europe, you're writing a book. And like I wanted to ask you, can the same methodology what you are saying be applied in various places all around the world, taking weather and other factors into consideration?
Yes, everywhere, because you play the game of football. The game of football in India is not different from the game of football in Europe or the game of football in South America. The game is exactly the same.
But you see, like many of the coaches, like you have like maybe it's like more humid here. Does this affect what you're doing, or does it not affect?
Um, well, not to my methodology. It will affect your bodies and your uh, execution. If you take a player from India and put them here in Holland, and you put him here now, maybe he will be cold because the weather here is colder than in India. Maybe that will influence a player. But if you play a game in India, yeah, it doesn't only rain on one half of the pitch. It will rain all over the pitch. And yeah, if there's not a lot of grass, it will get muddy. But all the players will play in a muddy field. So that will influence their game, but not the game in itself. So if you here in Holland, we have a lot of different weather styles. We have if it's very hot, you play a different game than if it's 2 degrees freezing. If it's freezing, I don't know if you use degrees or the
Yeah,
metric system in India, but
no, we use degrees.
okay. Well, if it's freezing cold outside, you play a different football game than if it's 40 degrees. That will influence your choice and decision making. You will run less if it's hot. I coached in America, and yeah, I coached at 35, 40 degrees, and it was very hot. And I thought, like, well, how are these kids going to play a football camp for 3 hours? But when they arrived, they all were having fun, and they had no problems at all because they were used to that humidity, to that weather, to those conditions. I was not, because I was from a different country. But once I got used to the climate and to what the people, the players could do, that would affect my decisions in drills and what I asked from the players. So the game of football is not different around the world. The game is everywhere the same.
So of course, like, I wanted to ask you, like, we have, like, more or less based this conversation around tactical periodization, which was why we started speaking. And I wanted to ask you one final question before we wrap up. I wanted to ask you, like, do you think, like, there are any coaches who do not use tactical periodization, maybe in the top level of football, or is it everyone uses it?
Um, that's difficult to answer because I've talked to coaches about it. Some coaches think they know something about it. Some coaches, Dutch coaches are different because we were brought up with the Dutch style of football. And yeah, I know there's a lot of different points of view in football. In professional football, I see a lot of teams that work from game to game. And in my view, each season is the same. You play the same opponents, or you play the same game a lot of times. And development is mostly not built around a season, but around from game to game to game. Players get instructions from game to game to game. And I don't want to create robots that execute my tactics. I want to have independent players that play the game. That if they know our opponent is weak on the left, yeah, we leave that open. And when they have the ball, we put full pressure on that. Instead of, this is how we're going to play. Dot. And yeah, in my view on football, there's a lot of things wrong with the philosophy in football around the world. If, for instance, if you have a team is 16 players, and you as a coach, you want to develop those 16 players. It doesn't help telling the team, okay, you are the 16 players, but from the 16 players, you are the 11 best players. You have to play the game. Okay, those 11 players are happy, they can play. They're the best, the coach thinks. And then they're 3-0 behind at halftime. Then, okay, coach is not happy. He makes some substitutions. But what he basically is asking from the substitutions is then the other players. But the coach said before the game, you are the 11 best players. So how can the substitutes and being better are not good enough? The basic philosophy that I think should change in football around the world, because I see that everywhere. The coach wants to be with 11 players, and if they can't do that, that's a problem. I don't see that as a problem, because you have a team and your subs, they can play. Maybe you have to change your tactics, but those 16 players as a team, you should develop the team and not just one player or two players. So that's what I try to tell the world with tactical periodization. You teach, you coach the whole team. You use the team, you use the specialties of each player. If you have tall players, maybe they're very good headers. Maybe if you have very small players, maybe they are very good dribblers, and you have to use each quality from a player to play the game instead of forcing a very tall player to be very technical, because most tall players are not very technical, but they're big and strong. That's their quality. Use that quality. That's what tactical periodization is teaching the teams.
Of course, and you're like, I think on that note, we'll wrap it up. And do you have anything to say before we wrap up?
Well, my book is coming out next year, because I wrote it in Dutch. It's being translated right now. So now keep watching the show, and I'll make sure I send an update about the book when it's ready. And enjoy playing football in India. Have fun developing. Um, I saw some of your shows, and I read some things about football in India with the two leagues now. The two leagues problems that India has with the ISL and what was the other one?
I League.
The I League, and yeah, maybe we'll see each other in the future.
Hopefully, and hopefully I can talk to you soon. Maybe like maybe you can we can have another talk someday in the future about your book only, and not about maybe tactical periodization and maybe about some other person. Like only about your book. Hopefully that happens soon when everything is translated and maybe when you're ready.
Yes, no problem at all, and we'll talk again soon.
Sure. And on that note, and thank you so much for talking to me, and I wish you all the best for your book which is coming up. Take care, stay safe. Thank you once again for coming. Bye.
No problem. Bye bye.
Bye.